Hi, I'm Sam. At a family dinner, my sister raised her glass and said, "We're moving into the house." Everyone clapped. It took me 3 full seconds to realize she meant my house. No one had asked, not even hinted. Turns out, they'd already moved her stuff in, while we were still passing the mashed potatoes. They said I was being cold, difficult, rigid. But what do you call it when your family slowly replaces you, room by room, and smiles while doing it? I stayed quiet, until I didn't. And when I finally spoke, I didn't use words. I used receipts. Would you have let them stay? Or would you have done what I did? The front door clicked behind me, and the scent of lemon polish met my nose. Not the kind you find at a cheap motel. No, this was the kind my mother used to break out once a year when someone from church was coming over. Too perfect, too deliberate. The dining table looked like a magazine spread. Crisp tablecloth, matching cloth napkins, iron pressed. My father's wine glasses had made an appearance, the expensive ones they never even used on Christmas. Champagne was chilling in a silver bucket, and there was Tanya, already seated at the head of the table, grinning like she'd just won something. I paused for half a second in the hallway. That grin, that seat, it told me more than any words had to. Something was off. I stepped in with a smile that didn't quite reach my cheeks and walked toward the kitchen to drop off the pie I'd brought. "Hey, everyone," I said, half out of habit. My mother gave me her usual tight hug, my father nodded with a distant smile, and Tanya chirped, "You're just in time." She was glowing. New lipstick, hair styled. She wore confidence like a new jacket, one size too big, but she didn't care. My seat at the table had a handwritten place card. Cute touch, Tanya. I sat down slowly, scanning the room. Everyone seemed in sync, except me. My mother passed the rolls. Tanya talked about a podcast she'd started listening to. My father offered wine. Tanya giggled at something she said and locked eyes with our mom. Then it dropped. "We're moving into the house," Tanya announced, beaming as if she'd just declared her engagement. "Isn't that right, Mom?" The air shifted. Forks froze. Glasses halted mid-air. For 1 second, just one, the room forgot how to breathe. Then my mother chuckled. My father raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, clinking with Tanya. I sat there, staring at the condensation dripping from my water glass. I didn't say a word. My knuckles whitened around the stem of the glass, but I smiled, because that's what you do when you're the one being publicly rearranged. No one looked at me, not really. Tanya accepted her champagne flute like it was a trophy. I sipped water, though my throat had gone dry. The worst part wasn't the blindsiding, it was the choreography. Everyone knew the steps but me. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I remembered the day Tanya claimed my childhood bedroom while I was at band camp. No warning, no apology, just boxes where my posters used to be. I should have seen it coming. But I didn't. After dinner, I stepped outside for air. The porch lights buzzed overhead. My phone buzzed too. I unlocked it and saw a new Facebook notification. Tanya had posted a selfie on my front porch. My front porch. She stood next to the door like it was her welcome mat. Caption: "New chapter, new space, so grateful for family." And then, in smaller text, right under the photo, "Moving into our sister's home feels just right." My stomach dropped. She didn't just make the announcement tonight, she'd made it online hours ago. I'd just been the formality. I scrolled through the comments. "Ellis, you're the best brother ever," one of our cousins wrote. Brother. Right. That's what happens when you're quiet long enough. People forget to check how you identify. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I didn't even react. I closed the app, slid the phone into my pocket, and leaned against the porch rail. Inside, Tanya laughed. My mother poured more wine. My father told one of his recycled stories. From where I stood, they sounded like a soundtrack to a life that no longer included me. I drove home in silence. My headlights cut through the night like questions I didn't know how to ask. At home, I kicked off my shoes and walked straight to the bedroom. My phone buzzed again. "Thanks again, sis. You're saving me." From Tanya. I didn't reply. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out the manila folder. It had been sitting there for weeks, untouched. Just in case, I placed it on the bed, stared at it for a while. Then I whispered to no one in particular, "If they think I'll let this happen quietly, they've clearly forgotten who actually owns the deed." I didn't sleep well that night, not because of the dinner, not entirely. It was the weight of something I couldn't quite name, like I had watched someone walk into my house and pick up my life without asking, and all I did was smile through it. The next morning, I opened my phone to a chain of texts from relatives. "So excited for your new living arrangement," one read. Another said, "You're doing the right thing, Sam. Family first." Each one landed like a slap wrapped in a handshake. I walked into the kitchen. There was a pink mug sitting by the sink. I don't own a pink mug. Then the hallway. A bathrobe, floral, oversized, hanging on the back of the bathroom door. Not mine either. There's a moment when a house stops feeling like a home and starts feeling like a waiting room. That was it. I stood in the hallway, not touching anything, just watching, wondering if maybe I was overthinking, reading into things that weren't really there. But the robe was real. The mug was real. The air even smelled different, like someone else's lotion had claimed the space. An email pinged on my phone. Subject line, "Household Harmony." From Mom. Didn't open it. I moved through the rest of the morning in a kind of slow haze, answered client emails, rearranged files I'd already organized last week. But I kept returning to one thing. The door to the guest room had been cracked open when I came home. It had been closed when I left for dinner the day before. Around noon, I finally stepped into the room. 2 suitcases, a yoga mat, a vision board labeled "My Restart," sticky notes with quotes like "Don't call it a comeback" and "This time, I choose me." There wasn't a shred of hesitation in any of it. She'd moved in like she owned the right to do it. I didn't call her, didn't text. Instead, I opened the Nest app on my phone, scrolled back to the previous day. At exactly 6:03 p.m., while I was passing the salad bowl to my dad, Tanya's boyfriend had helped carry in the bags through the side door. Camera caught it all. She didn't even wait until dinner was over. I took screenshots, then photos of the room from every angle. Not out of anger, out of preservation. Like documenting a crime scene no one would ever prosecute. This wasn't an accident. This was a strategy. By evening, the sky had turned gray. I was pouring tea when her message came through. "Can't tell you how grateful I am. It's been rough. You're saving me." Just like that. No question mark, no apology, no conversation. And then, it got worse. She posted a screenshot of the message on her Instagram story. Caption, "Real family shows up, #grateful." She tagged me. The replies came quick. Heart emojis, clapping hands. "So proud of you both." Sam's always been the rock. I sat on the couch, reread the message, once, twice. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel honored. I felt erased. In my family, thank you has always been a trick. A closing statement. It didn't mean gratitude. It meant debt collection. You're thanked so you can't back out later. You said yes. We even thanked you for it. I didn't reply. That night, I stayed up late. Too late. Organized kitchen drawers that didn't need organizing. Folded laundry that had already been folded. It's the kind of restlessness you feel when something precious has been tampered with, and all you can do is hover near it, hoping to feel ownership again. Around 11:30, I turned off the last light and walked toward my bedroom. There it was. A canvas tote. Beige. Tanya's initials embroidered in blue, sitting on the floor next to my closet. Not in the guest room, in my room. She hadn't said a word about needing more space. She didn't have to. I didn't touch it, didn't move it, just stood there, watching it like it might grow legs and climb into my dresser. That bag said more than Tanya ever had to. You're not the owner, you're the host. By Tuesday afternoon, the air had that stillness right before a storm. Gray sky, no wind, too quiet to feel right. I had just gotten back from a client consult across town. Traffic was light, but my head was heavy. I'd been avoiding my own thoughts all day. They were louder than the freeway. There was something slid under the front door when I got home. I didn't see it right away. I nearly stepped on it. Heavy stock paper, cream-colored. The logo at the top made my stomach twist. Harmony Dispute Mediation Center. I'd only heard of it once, from Mom. In passing. Something about a gentle way to get ahead of conflict before it starts. I placed the envelope on the kitchen counter, didn't open it, made tea instead. That's the trick, I've learned. If you don't touch the thing immediately, it won't burn you. Not yet. But even through the envelope, I could feel it. Soft wording with sharp claws. Temporary language masking permanent intent. Later that day, I stopped by Mom's house under the excuse of dropping off groceries. She welcomed me in with her usual warmth, like we weren't part of a slow war she was pretending not to notice. "Oh good, you're here," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I baked that peach pie you like." That pie had always been her olive branch. Sweet on the outside, but always served when she was about to ask me to do something against my better judgment. "I got something in the mail," I said carefully, not sitting down. She nodded with that practiced casualness. "Oh, from the mediation center, I imagine. Nothing serious, darling. Just something to make everyone feel secure. You know, for clarity." "For clarity?" I repeated. She handed me a plate of pie. "It's just paperwork. So everyone's protected." Everyone. That word again. The way she said it meant not me, but everyone else. She didn't lie. Not directly. She just painted the edges of the truth with polite varnish and handed it back like a favor, and I'd been trained for years to say thank you. I didn't. I left without touching the pie. Back in my car, I didn't start the engine. I sat there, keys in hand, rereading the document. The phrase that snagged me was buried in the middle. After 180 days of cohabitation, Party B may be entitled to limited occupancy rights unless otherwise stated. I Googled it. Occupancy rights. 6 months. Legal foothold. This wasn't conflict avoidance. This was planning. I whispered aloud to no one. This isn't trust. This is paper-draped theft. I took a photo of the contract, texted it to a lawyer friend of mine with the message, "Call me tomorrow." Then I sat with it. Not the paper, the realization. Tanya hadn't just moved in. She'd brought an exit strategy, just not for herself. That evening, the house was quiet. Tanya wasn't home yet. The kitchen smelled like mint from the tea I let steep too long. I opened the envelope again and placed it flat on the counter. Beside it, I placed my house keys. Not as a gesture of surrender, but as a message, a silent one. "I saw what you tried to do." I left them there and lit a candle, sat at the table, ate alone. I didn't even look at my phone, though I knew there were messages waiting. Tanya had probably tagged me in some post again. Grateful this family that. Let them wait. They wanted to play nice. I could play nice. Just not dumb. If they want a legal war in the language of kindness, I can speak that too. Wednesday started off like most midweeks, just heavy enough to remind you the weekend's still out of reach. I got home late afternoon, juggling grocery bags and keys, and saw Mrs. DeWitt across the street watering her lawn. We used to talk about neighborhood stuff. Now she barely looked up. As I stepped out of the car, she finally turned and said, "So excited for your sister's big new chapter. Must be such a relief for you both." There it was, the tone, like we'd reached some happy family milestone, like I'd been a part of it. I didn't answer, just forced a polite nod and carried the bags inside. My front door clicked shut behind me, and I let the silence soak in. In the kitchen, Tanya's planner sat open on the table. On Thursday's square. Paint guest room walls. Guest room, not my sister's house. Not, maybe I'll ask Sam. Just, hers. This isn't just a lie, I whispered to no one. It's a campaign. Later that evening, I sat down and opened Facebook. Shouldn't have. Tanya had been tagged in a post by a local women's group, celebrating brave women rebuilding their lives. Her photo was there, smiling, confident, standing on my porch. The comments made my throat tighten. So lucky to have a brother like Sam. True strength is in the women who start over. God bless supportive families. I closed the app, deleted it, not just from the home screen, from the phone. I'd lost control of the story. And in this family, that's as good as losing your seat at the table. That night, we had dinner at Mom and Dad's place. Roast chicken, store-bought rolls passed off as homemade. Tanya wasn't there yet. Mom said, "Let this be a time of healing, Sam. Don't stir things up." Dad added, not even looking up from his plate, "You've always been a bit." rigid. Maybe this will soften you. I stared into my food. I couldn't taste it anyway. They didn't see me. They saw a role, one they expected me to keep playing without question. Midway through the meal, Tanya walked in with takeout bags and a breeze of confidence. "Didn't want to interrupt the family peace," she said, grinning. "Sam's already a bit on edge." Nobody laughed, but nobody stopped her, either. She set the bags down, kissed Mom on the cheek, and joined the table like she hadn't just thrown a grenade into the room. After dinner, while we were clearing plates, Aunt Carla pulled me aside. "You can't hold this over her forever," she said quietly. "She's had it rough. This is what family does." I looked at her. I didn't hold anything. I just hadn't offered it. She didn't respond. Just patted my shoulder like I was being unreasonable. Back at the table, I tried to speak. Just a sentence. "I'm not comfortable with how this is all being handled." Mom sighed, long and slow. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." And just like that, I became the problem. It was always easier to point at the one standing still and say, "She's not helping," than to admit the room had been rearranged behind her back. That night, after driving home in silence, I tossed my bag on the couch and opened my phone. Group text from Tanya. Subject: Family update. A photo of the guest room, new curtains. Framed quote above the bed. "New beginnings, start at home." Caption: Our cozy new space. Aki yai emi sharan is city. Everyone had responded. Hearts, thumbs up, smiley faces. Except me. I stared at the message, then opened my camera app. Started with the bedroom. Closet. Dresser. Then the office. Desk. Printer. Wall calendar. Every corner. Every light switch. If they wanted to erase me, fine. But I was going to leave behind proof I was here. Thursday evening stretched longer than it should have. The clouds hung lower than usual, like they were waiting for something to drop. I walked home slower than I needed to, not because I was tired, because I wasn't ready to open the door. My phone buzzed a dozen times before I even reached the porch. Notifications, comments, shares. One post had taken off. Written by a friend of the family who wasn't close enough to know the truth, but close enough to act like she did. Some people care more about square footage than sisterhood. That was the quote. I read it twice. Then looked at the names who had liked it. Mom, Aunt Marla, even Cheryl, my boss's wife, for God's sake. So that's what I was now, greedy. I set my phone in the kitchen drawer and closed it, deliberate, like sealing off oxygen. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I started labeling the kitchen drawers, cutlery, dry goods, canned, baking. I wasn't organizing, I was preserving. I moved to the office and began scanning old utility bills, pulling receipts, checking timestamps on emails. I created folders on my desktop labeled Ownership, Contributions, and Incidents. I printed a spreadsheet from my bank. Every repair I had paid for, every tax bill, every water bill since Tanya first stayed over. Halfway through this audit, my phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. "Don't let bitterness ruin the family. Let this pass." I stared at that text for too long. Let it pass? I said it out loud. Then laughed. The kind of laugh that doesn't feel good. The kind that lands like a cough. Pass like a kidney stone? I deleted the message. Not to forget it. Just to keep the data clean. Then I went back to work. Every photo, every document, every text Tanya had sent me with phrases like, "You saved me," and "I couldn't have done this without you." They went into their own folder. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was arithmetic. By the time the clock ticked toward midnight, I was numb, but efficient. That's when it hit me. This didn't start last week, or at that dinner. It started years ago, the first time Tanya crashed at my place and didn't replace the milk. The second time, she borrowed my card for gas and never mentioned it again. Every visit came with a price, none of them named. I opened my bank history, found matches, her visits and my grocery bills rising, the wine she liked, the meatless entrees I only bought when she was around. She never even brought her own shampoo. I paused, sat back in my chair, took a breath that didn't go very far. The longest cons, I muttered, are played with clean hands and full plates. I stood, walked to the printer, watched as it slowly churned out the pages I'd compiled, set them into a red folder, labeled it with a Sharpie, for the meeting. There wasn't a meeting scheduled yet, but there would be. I rehearsed a few lines in my head. Nothing too dramatic, just facts. Then I slid the folder into my tote bag, right beside my house keys. They want quiet, fine, but they'll learn. Silence can document too. The morning was still, the kind of still that feels almost staged, like the house was holding its breath. I made my usual cup of coffee at 6:15, poured it slowly, sat at the kitchen table without turning the lights on. I didn't touch the newspaper, didn't check emails, just let the steam rise in silence. It felt like the only part of my day I still had control over. Then I heard the laughter, not Tanya's, her daughter's, that bubbly, sticky kind of giggle kids make when they've been told a secret. I walked down the hallway and paused just outside the office. She was sitting in my desk chair, spinning. Mom too says this is her desk now. She said it like she was proud, like she was quoting scripture. I didn't say a word, didn't correct her. I just turned around and walked away. When someone rewrites the story, you wonder how long until they erase the author. By noon, the sun had come out, but it didn't change the way the house felt. Still quiet, still wrong. That's when the message came in. It wasn't from Tanya, or my mother. It was from my father. I never said this back then, but I should have. You didn't deserve to carry all of that. No punctuation, no follow-up, just that. I sat on the porch, phone still glowing in my hand, for nearly half an hour. Didn't scroll, didn't text back, just held it. A memory came back. Me at 15, on my knees under the kitchen sink, wrench in hand, fixing a leak that had been dripping for days. Mom and Tanya were upstairs, crying over a boy who had broken Tanya's heart. No one asked how I knew what to do. No one asked if I needed help. Recognition shouldn't feel like an earthquake, but when you've only known silence, any sound can feel like a rescue. I didn't reply to the text. Not out of spite, out of instinct. I needed to hold on to something without giving it away. That afternoon, I drove to Staples and picked up what I needed: printer paper, folders, colored tabs, sheet protectors. Back home, I cleared the kitchen island and turned it into something between a courtroom and a war room. Timelines, receipts, digital backups. It wasn't rage, it was preparation. Tanya walked in around 4, sunglasses still on inside the house. She stopped at the sight of the paperwork spread out like blueprints. Wow, organizing again? She said, half smirking. You really don't know how to relax. I looked up and smiled. Actually, I do. I'm just choosing not to. She shrugged, grabbed a sparkling water from the fridge, and disappeared down the hallway, unaware that I had just finished cataloging 2 years' worth of evidence tying her to occupancy fraud, utility spikes, time-stamped deliveries, mail addressed in her name. The kind of trail you can't rewrite with hashtags. That evening, I made tea and sat down on the living room couch. No TV, no noise, just my thoughts, and the weight of knowing. After a few minutes, I picked up my phone, opened Instagram, and posted a single photo. The guest room, clean, empty, unlit. Caption: preparing the space for transition. No tags, no filters, no smiles. A few minutes later, I heard Tanya's door click open down the hall. She didn't say anything, but I knew she saw it. Sometimes the only way to make someone see you is to let them wonder what you know. Saturday came with a heaviness I couldn't explain. Not exhaustion, just an awareness that something was about to shift. I woke up early, not because I had plans, but because I needed to see the house before they filled it. At 8:42 a.m., a group message pinged on my phone. Tanya had invited everyone, our aunts, cousins, a few friends from her therapy group, to a small celebration dinner at my house. A heartfelt thank you to Sam for making this transition possible, it read. My name was in the message, but I wasn't asked. By late afternoon, I stepped into my own kitchen and didn't recognize it. A fresh bouquet of lilies, definitely not mine, sat on the counter. Tanya's Spotify playlist was already echoing through the Bluetooth speaker. Jazz, her version of classy ambiance. Guests trickled in around 6. Tanya greeted them like royalty. Air kisses, laughter, compliments on the lighting. She walked a friend through the house and stopped at the pantry, saying, "Sam's got a thing for labels." I was introduced twice, both times as the generous little sister. Not homeowner, not provider, just the backdrop to her story. They weren't just taking the house, they were erasing the blueprint that proved it was mine. Dinner was casual. Pasta, bread, some overpriced salad she didn't cook. I moved through it in a fog, smiling when I had to, nodding where appropriate. Then Tanya stood up, wine glass in hand. "I just want to say how grateful I am," she began, eyes damp but practiced. "This house, this moment, none of it would be possible without Sam. She's always been the backbone of our family, even when she didn't know it." Everyone clapped. I stood slowly, walked to the corner where my tote bag waited, unzipped it, pulled out the red folder, set it on the table with quiet precision. One by one, I opened each document: title deed, city permit receipts, plumbing invoices, tax statements, all under my name, all notarized, all in order. I didn't say much, didn't need to. Evidence doesn't need to scream. It only needs to exist where silence used to be. No one said a word. Tanya's smile faltered, just slightly. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and returned to my chair. The rest of dinner was quiet. Not the comfortable kind. People left in small clusters, hugs exchanged, but their eyes avoided mine. After the last guest stepped out, I stayed behind to clear the glasses. That's when I saw it. On the hallway table. The family photo from 3 years ago. The one taken at Mom's anniversary party. But this one had something new. A sticker, placed neatly over my face. Bright yellow, with bold black letters. Family supporter. My hand trembled, not from anger, but from the absurdity. Even when I showed up, they rewrote what I was. I peeled it off slowly, folded it twice, slid it into my coat pocket. Tanya caught me. "Oh, come on," she said. "It's just something funny for the kids." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Damage doesn't need explanation. It just lingers. When the house was finally empty again, I stood at the front door, folder still in hand. I turned off the music, locked the deadbolt, took a breath, then texted my realtor. "I'm ready to list. Let's talk Monday." If they wanted to take over my life, they should have brought their own foundation. Sunday started quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, just hollow. I stood at the kitchen counter, sorting junk mail into the recycling, listening to Tanya hum in the next room. No music, just that kind of off-key hum people do when they think they're in control. She hadn't said much since the dinner. Neither had I. That made me nervous. Tanya quiet wasn't Tanya calm. It meant she was working something behind the scenes. Late morning, I was deleting old voicemails when a text came in from my cousin Rachel. "Wow, beautiful piece," Tanya wrote. "Brave of you both." I stopped mid-scroll. I hadn't written anything. I followed the link she sent. A blog post on Medium titled "The Home We Heal In." Tanya's photo was right at the top, smiling, modest, posed in the living room. I read. She had turned the last 3 months into a story of trauma recovery. Her hardship, my quiet strength, the kindness of family. "My sister didn't say much," she wrote, "but her actions opened her heart. She framed me as the wise, stoic one, the one who gave, who understood. In her version, I was the house, not the homeowner. I didn't close the tab. I let it sit open." Mid-afternoon, I went upstairs to put away laundry. My phone rang. FaceTime. It was Tanya's number. I answered, thinking it might be accidental. It was. Her daughter's face filled the screen first, smudged with something red, likely Kool-Aid. She smiled, then dropped the phone. It landed face up, tilted, still on. That's when I heard it. In the background, Tanya, Mom, and Aunt Avery. They were speaking with a man on speakerphone. Legal talk. Controlled voices. If Sam doesn't cooperate, Tanya said, we'll present it as a family unity issue. No one sides with someone trying to evict a child. Frame it as a safety concern, Mom added. She's always been so distant. I didn't move, didn't even blink. The call stayed open. I pressed the screen record button without a sound. Let it all capture. Her tone, the phrasing, the casual rehearsed malice in their voices. When the screen finally cut out, I sat back on the edge of the bed. This wasn't survival. This was strategy. No panic, no rage, just a clean, sharp kind of clarity. By evening, I was in the office with my laptop. I drafted the email slowly, every line checked twice. Subject: clarification of ownership and legal standing. Attached: deed, receipts, utility records, time-stamped documentation. Message body: to avoid confusion and prevent further misrepresentation, I'm outlining my sole legal ownership of this property, along with relevant documentation. This is not an act of anger. This is an act of truth. I included the FaceTime recording, sent it to the family group thread, CC'd Tanya directly. Then I stood up, walked into the office closet, pulled out my filing box, and added a new folder. Insurance. Printed the screenshots. Dated them. And then I waited. The thread stayed silent, no hearts, no laughing reactions, just digital stillness. That night, curiosity won. I checked the article again. The title had changed. Now it read, "When Homes Are Just Houses." The tone had shifted, softer, less personal. She'd removed the quote about me opening my heart. But the original had already been seen, shared, bookmarked. Archive sites, don't forget. Tanya rewrote the story once. I let her. The second time, I kept the receipts. Monday morning started with the kind of cold that didn't need wind to get under your skin. I picked up my dry cleaning from the place on 5th and walked over to the cafe across the street. It wasn't crowded, which was rare, but I didn't mind. I needed quiet more than caffeine. The barista rang me up, smiled, and said, "You're Tanya's sister, right? She said she finally bought her dream place. Good for her." I didn't correct him. Just nodded, slid the card, took the cup. Sometimes the lie travels farther than the deed. Walking back toward the apartment, my phone buzzed again. Another comment on Tanya's latest update. This one from an old college friend. "Proud of you both. Sam was always the quiet, strong one. You were the brave one." I stopped reading there. I didn't feel seen. I felt interpreted. Back at the old house, I stood in the kitchen, labeling boxes. Donate, store, trash. The place was almost empty, but not quiet. Every wall held something invisible. I touched the fireplace mantel one last time, looked up at the family photo that still hung there. Stickers gone. The smile on my face still didn't feel like mine. I didn't take it with me, didn't tear it down either. I left it, a parting gift, or a ghost. I moved from room to room, tapping walls I painted, running my hand along tile I scrubbed, cabinets I fixed, doors I rehinged, faucets I paid to stop leaking. No witnesses, no applause, just invisible labor saying goodbye. Before locking the front door, I left my keys on the kitchen island, next to a folded note. I moved out, not because I lost, because I outgrew the space where I had to prove my worth. I closed the door behind me, didn't look back. The new place was smaller, quieter, brighter, the kind of space where your breath comes easier. The deed sat framed on my desk, not the old one, but this one, this new beginning. Not proof of ownership, proof of choice. A week later, Tanya showed up unannounced. I saw her through the front window before she rang the bell. She held a potted plant, small, wilted around the edges. I stepped outside and sat on the porch. No offer to come in. She didn't ask. She took the other chair and said nothing for a while. Finally, she said, "I didn't know how much I was hurting you." I looked at her, not coldly, just clear. "I did," I said, "and that's why I left." She nodded. Placed the plant on the steps. No hug, no tears, just space. And that was enough. That night, I sat alone with tea. No playlist, no background noise. I pulled up Tanya's article. Still live, still curated. She never took it down, never fixed it. I didn't contact the site, didn't write a rebuttal, didn't update anyone. Some battles aren't won with explanations. They're won by no longer needing to be understood. I closed the laptop and opened the window beside me. Fresh air met my face like a decision I didn't have to defend.